The Charlotte Hornets just did a major move in moving LaMelo Ball to the Minnesota Timberwolves for a whole bunch of picks. They're in full rebuild mode, and honestly, this is a really good move for both teams. I believe that LaMelo Ball is a hell of a player, and that he will shine in the Minnesota Timberwolves uniform. I do believe that right now the Minnesota Timberwolves are looking for a win now mode. I don't know how long they will have Anthony Edwards. I don't know if Anthony Edwards is basically on the point of his career where he's basically saying, we're going to win now or I'm just going to go somewhere else. You never know with superstars like this if they're going to be the hometown heroes and be in one city for the rest of their careers, or if they're going to try to find something different and an easier path to do so. Because when you look at a bunch of the other superstars or look at the people who have won championships, it takes a whole team and a whole unit, and you have to look at your unit realistically and be like, can my team beat those teams in a 7-game series? And when you look at the Minnesota Timberwolves, you could probably say they could beat the Knicks, but in order for them to beat the Knicks, they have to beat the Thunder and the Spurs. And so, those two teams, I believe, immensely outweighs the talent that they have in the Minnesota Timberwolves. But with LaMelo Ball, and of course they had to give away Nas Reed, LaMelo Ball is going to be an interesting wrinkle because LaMelo is a very interesting and just like distinguishable player. I believe that he holds a lot of different cards to when he's on the court because he's not necessarily a person who's a score first type of player, which is exactly what the Timberwolves need because essentially they have their backup PGs, but the main point guard of the team is Anthony Edwards, and outside of the bench players that come on to really help him, he's not necessarily the best facilitator on the court. He can do it, and he's more so kind of like in the SGA type of field where he is a willing passer, he'll pass the ball, but he's mainly looking for his shot, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. When you have LaMelo Ball, he's more so a pass-first guy. And he's a really, really creative guy, which honestly can get into his own way, where you'll see a lot of the high highlights, but the low highlights as well, where you're seeing a guy who's, you would say that you're just doing too much. And he had a moment this year where he took 23 shots, but only shot, I think, 18 of them were threes. He is a three-point chucking savant, essentially. And it's going to be really difficult if he's going to keep that same style of play to be successful in Minnesota. But I do believe that they will try to, I wouldn't say dumb down his game, but more so simplify his game. They're going to utilize the fact that he is a prolific passer, a really, really good passer, and loves setting up players. You'll probably see more Rudy Gobert being able to be more in the offense because similar to Victor Wembanyama, with his reach, he can just get the ball. You just throw the ball to him and he's going to get the ball. He's not as nimble or as fluid or as flexible as Wembanyama, but Rudy Gobert is a really good second in terms of you just want him to kind of get the ball and just dunk it as close as he can get to the basket, because outside of that he has no offensive utility, and I don't know what he's been doing for the last 13 years or so he's been in the league. But LaMelo Ball is going to kind of unlock that. But more importantly, I think LaMelo Ball is going to unlock the guard-to-guard pick and pop or pick and roll, however they want to run it. When they were in Charlotte, LaMelo ran a lot of action with the guard-to-guard screens. Now, most of the times the guards were popped, but this brings a lot of opportunity to the Timberwolves where you can run a lot of guard-to-guard screens with Anthony Edwards, and how Anthony Edwards will be opened up, because now you can't just settle on Anthony Edwards to make a whole bunch of shots. When you have him moving without the ball, which I believe that he'll be able to do, he'll be even more dangerous because there's now a defensive imbalance on the court, and so it'll be very difficult to kind of keep him contained because he's not necessarily isoing every play or trying to get his teammates involved. Matter of fact, he's the one that's trying to get involved based off of LaMelo Ball's action. And so I do believe that the guard-to-guard screen is going to be something that carries over from his Hornets days to the Timberwolves, because that's simply where he shined a lot. And that's why you saw Con Knuckle really found himself, because he was able to get basically a lot of open looks and a lot of easy shots based off of LaMelo Ball's creation and his creativity in getting his teammates involved. And so he's one of those superstars that is very, very open to just passing the ball. And he's a point guard, a real true point guard, 6'7". He's not necessarily the the strongest or the fastest or really even that great on defense. That's one thing that they have to really figure out what is going to happen on the defensive end. But he's a guy where, in terms of the offensive engine, that guy's going to be your guy to really get a lot of people involved. When he was on the court, every person on the Charlotte Hornets became better, every single person. And I know that he has the negative reputation of just being an empty stats player, but I don't believe that that is entirely true. I just believe that the Charlotte Hornets really struggled in getting premier talent to the team. I mean, when you look at the team, you know, outside of Constantinople, Brandon Miller started to find his own a little bit, but are those players good enough to beat the New York Knicks? Are they good enough to really make a championship contending team? Not necessarily, not at all. And it's really hard to get people to go to Charlotte, because who wants to go to Charlotte? No disrespect, but it's really difficult to build a talented team when simply nobody really wants to go to that city and to that franchise. And so what is going to really help LaMelo Ball is that he's going to actually be in real winning scenarios where a lot of his strengths is going to be exploited and going to be used in this offense. But I would be remiss to say that there's going to be a lot of, I'll say, growing pains with LaMelo Ball, because you're going to have to figure out if LaMelo Ball is not going to refine his game. You're going to see high turnover games. You're going to see him simply just, when you're just looking at the eye test, you're just doing too much, bro. You know, you're going to see a lot of that. But at the end of the day, if you were, you know, Chris Finch, the head coach, you're going to tell him, like, hey, man, just simplify your game, dude. Like, a lot of the shots he takes, the one-leggers and stuff like that, like, those are really good highlights. But he really thrives in taking spot-up shots, not necessarily like a catch-and-shooter, but when in a pick-and-roll scenario, he could just walk into his shot and get a wide-open shot from top of the key. That's really where he kind of thrives. But all the one-legged shots and stuff like that, that's something where you kind of have to play, you know, devil's advocate and saying that, well, that's part of his creativity as a player, and that's how he can really, you know, get shots off sometimes. But if he's unbalanced, if he is undisciplined, it can be really difficult to see and to really believe the fact that he can make those shots on a consistent clip, because he really cannot. I mean, he's making around like 40% barely of all his field goals, because most of his field goals is not necessarily getting downhill, but more so going to the three-point line and just chucking those shots up. And so we're going to have to see where exactly LaMelo will fit in all that, because I believe in order for him to be a very serious player, he has to simplify his game. He has to take shots that just the easy shots, the good shots, and see how other players of his ilk are able to really attack the basket and still get his teammates involved. Now, if that's the case and he continues to improve his game, this Minnesota Timberwolves team is going to be dangerous, because they still have a good assortment of their pieces on offense and on defense. You got Jaden McDaniels. Why would you ever need KD type of guy? You got a whole bunch of players on this roster, and they still probably would have to build up a little bit more since they got rid of Naz Reid and Julius Randle. So they're probably going to look for more swings to kind of hide LaMelo Ball on the court. But essentially, this team is still in a really good position to make things shake. Now, the only issue is that if you just don't simply have the team that is good enough to beat the Spurs, good enough to beat the Thunder, well, then this is a move that is not going to bode well for this team, because they gave up a lot for LaMelo Ball. But like I mentioned before, this could be a scenario where LaMelo Ball could be the dynasty after Anthony Edwards. If Anthony Edwards does not want to stay in Minnesota, which is a very high possibility in my opinion, well then now you have your next point guard. You know, this is one of those possible shifts where, you know, you might not be as good as you were before, but at least you got something, you know? And so they gave up a lot of their picks. It's going to be a very difficult road to become a championship caliber team, but I do believe that they're in the second tier where they can really make a really good showing for a championship contending team. But we'll see how that kind of goes. But I do believe that LaMelo Ball is the perfect fit for this team, because this team really, really needed a pass-first point guard who's really dynamic with the ball, able to score on his own, and also able to get a lot of his teammates involved. And that is exactly who LaMelo Ball is.